O'Reilly.
Check engine light on? Take the guesswork out of your check engine light with O'Reilly Veriscan. It's free and provides a report with solutions based on over 650 million vehicle scans verified by ASE certified master technicians. And if you need help, we can recommend a shop for you. Ask for O'Reilly Veriscan today.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Welcome to the MMA Roadshow, episode number 516. My name is John Morgan, and an exhausted, worn out, scatterbrained, just whatever word you want to use, Cole Coffee is with me, joining us after a mere 16 fighter interview. Well, no, 16
20.
Ultimate Fighter
Yeah.
interviews, 4 fighter interviews,
2 coaches,
and 2 coaches.
22.
22. Well, come on. Chael and DC were up there at the same time.
That's true.
Only 21 interviews. What a day, man, huh?
Yes.
What a day.
What a day. And since it was at the place where the Powell Station, normally it wasn't at the Apex, so they're still doing some stuff at the Apex. We knew that they were going to have weigh-ins and media days at the Powell Station, so it was at the Powell Station, so we had to drive across town. But rather than put us upstairs where the weigh-ins are going to be on Friday in what they call the salon rooms where the internet was better, we were down in the buffet space. They rearranged it a little bit different than what it is for the Contender Series, where we're normally facing into the gaming. We were sort of turned around facing into like the buffet area or whatever. But the worst part of it is that the internet is like non-existent. So it was really bad.
I was watching some of your stream, and it was choppy.
I've switched
in
3 different hotspots.
I knew you had been
and
struggling.
it was on my phone. Like the bulk of it was on my
On
phone.
your phone?
And I was like, guys, if you're gonna do stuff here, you like,
make sure
you gotta fix that. Like, like you could have asked me if you said like, hey, we're gonna be downstairs. I kind of spaced out and forgot like, oh yeah, the internet shit there. I was like, they'll take care of it.
Right.
They brought no internet, so we had to connect to the house one. So it was literally
it's so stressful too, right?
So you're gonna have a whole media day, and it'd be one thing. They understand, like if you're just recording, it's not a big deal. But I was like, bro, I stream all these things. Like at least put it in a place that there's internet so people can do work,
Well, if they're going to keep using that space, I get it. It's like a little one-off here and there. If they're going to keep using that space while the Apex is under construction, they're going to have to address that.
They got to do something. But and it's funny because like it is a beautiful buffet space that they just don't use anymore. And I happen to see since of course I'm always like one of the first guys there, last guy out. Everybody else had left, and the cleaning crew starts coming in. And I was talking to the guy that I've seen him like at all the Contenders after the fact. I was like, so tell me again, why did they never open this again? And I guess it was just like hemorrhaging money. Like even
that's been
before
a big Vegas thing because it was COVID and they had to get rid of all the buffets.
Yep.
But then when it came time that it was legal again, that they could do it, it was like, well,
they're like, should
but we didn't really make money, and people are kind of used to not having it now. So there's very few. I know that used to be like a big thing, right? For people you come to Vegas and you enjoy the buffets, the cheap buffets.
That was it, the cheap buffet.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like a tourist attraction in a sense, like you knew that was the only really, I mean, like you could find places that were like value meals or whatever, but like buffets was like the best value at the time, and now you can't find
There's
it.
only a couple buffets left in town, and they're really nice.
Yeah,
but they're expensive. Like
super
Caesars,
expensive.
the Wynn.
It's only like $100.
Like $100. Yeah, but so that's funny. Well, Ultimate Fighter. I will. First of all, I will. Well, I'm not even gonna let you go in on me, but I was going to be there. I was going to be there. Then I got the call. Hey, can you fill in with this? Jim Norton's not available. We need somebody from Filter. Can you jump in with Matt Serra? And I was like, absolutely. If I get a chance to hang out with Matt Serra.
They just put you as a full-time host on the bottom?
Today was my because they sent us notes. The producer Jake does a phenomenal job, man. To putting notes. He does an awesome rundown of here's who's up today and here's what's going on. It's a phenomenal rundown.
Did you get the rundown for this episode today?
You know what? I think it's in my inbox. I know you. I can't even. What a rundown! I can't even get you to do an 1.5 episode when I'm on the road, man. What are you talking about? I ain't getting no rundown.
I mean, it got lost. Communication issue.
But at the very top of it said, "This is John Morgan's 11th appearance on the show,
Holy cow.
10th time as co-host." I'd been on, I guess, as a guest. I thought I'd maybe been on there one time before.
Bro, you're like, I feel like every other week you're like, oh, I'm doing unfiltered. I'm doing unfiltered. I'm just like, why don't they just change the name at this point?
I'm in. I love it. Especially, man, I have a great relationship with Jim Norton, but Matt Serra I've just known forever. Yeah. You know what I mean? So because of that, like, that's just like two
different
friends
energy.
hanging out. Yeah, it's a different energy. Like when I'm filling in for Matt, I like working with Jim, but I only know him through like working I don't know if I shook his hand before or whatever.
Yeah.
But basically that's it. But like Matt,
he's like, don't touch me.
Exactly.
Guest. You're just filling in, buddy.
Exactly. So I love working with Matt. But so anyway, that's why I was not there today. But I will say this: I was really excited to be there today because I still do like the Ultimate Fighter. I do still like. I mean, you know, look at my work with CFFC. Like, I love the developmental side of the sport, and these guys. You know, I know, boy, this is like the biggest moment in their career. You know, this is a huge opportunity. So I love all that stuff. But I was actually really anxious to see if any of our guys were on there because I'd heard that maybe a couple of our guys might end up on the cast from CFFC because, especially, you know.
Did you get the bio sheet? Did I send that to you?
I did. I got it earlier today, and we didn't have any. So, like, Blaine Richards, our welterweight, because it's welterweight and flyweight, right? So I thought Blaine Richards for sure. He may be a little too advanced, but I don't know. So I thought he might be on. I thought he was a great candidate. I mentioned that I thought Bilal Hassan, probably they want to save him for Contender Series because, man, I don't know if you've seen this, dude, but we started putting stuff on our YouTube channel with CFFC, and we put our post-fight interview with him from the broadcast the other day, the way the UFC does. 70,000 views on YouTube.
Holy cow.
For a YouTube channel that's been dormant for like a year, 70,000 views on this. It's just like one of the top. So, I mean, this dude moves the needle, which I think is actually cool, which I didn't even think about when I was like, hey, can we start doing the YouTube channel again? That's going to be something that those athletes can go to the UFC and be like,
that's a good point.
Look at this. I move do I move the needle?
Yeah.
Check this out. My interview, my little 3-minute interview with John Morgan did 70,000 views.
Do you guys get all their, like, ats and stuff? Do you guys keep track of all their Twitters and stuff? That's what you guys need to do for the next step is, like, start then going back after you put, like, their videos out at them on social media so that they can then reshare it through their people or whatever.
That's a good call.
You know? But I just don't know. I mean, because at that point, you guys are just trying to get an event together, I'm sure, and get it done. It's not like you're like, please give me all your info. Like the UFC does that because they put up fighter pages
but you know what?
and stuff.
You know what? I've thought about doing exactly that.
Do you guys even do fighter pages?
For like on the website itself?
Yeah.
We don't. Okay. Which it's tough because
which makes sense why you would save that
moves
sort of
a lot.
Info.
You know what I mean? But I've actually thought about that because you know, like the bios that the UFC sends us, right?
Yeah.
Like Tom Trabassi does those, or at least did at one point. I don't know if he still does. But I've thought about that. It's like, why don't we do
Boxing
that
Hall of Fame? Isn't he like in the Boxing Hall of Fame?
Yeah.
Tom's a fucking hell of a writer, dude. That's good.
He's great. But I have actually thought about that. Yeah. I think that's one thing that I want to do moving forward is start building things like that. But anyway, so I thought Bilal Hassan might get a last second call. I mean, he just won a couple weeks ago, so it would have been like. But Fumi Nakuda, a former flyweight champ, is still undefeated. I know it for a fact because he grappled for us in the wintertime. I know that he had been at least talking to them.
Yeah.
So I thought he might get
selected. It definitely made it seem like some of the ones that sort of like eked out, even though production hates it when they say anything along about the production thing, made it feel like they were dragged out pretty far to find out whether they were going to make the show as well. Really? It felt like it was recent that some of these guys, because they haven't even gotten into the house yet.
Right. It's just this is like they're just about to get started.
Brand new. Like they were doing. I think they're either going to the house afterwards or like really, or like they're staying at the palace, but they're literally going to go to the thing. But like going and doing today was one of the very first things that they've done. You know, I behind the scenes know that they're not allowed to say their teams, right? They're not, but the teams just happened, I think, yesterday or the day before. So they just had that. So I'm surprised that they're not already staying in the house, but maybe they wait till that point. So if they weren't at the house, then today had to be probably move-in day or
that's
something.
What I thought maybe that's one reason they had it at Palace Station. Not maybe the Apex construction, but they probably were all staying at Palace Station.
Staying at the Palace Station.
Yeah, so
you know.
But they're moving into the house today.
And which is, you know, because it's like we're having a media day. We want to talk with them, but like they haven't really experienced anything. So we had to keep the questions like so generic.
Of course.
And you had to be, you know, they don't want to say. But if at this point, since nothing had really happened, the only thing that we could have got out from them is what team they're on.
Yeah.
That's the only info that they have. They
And they're
haven't
not
even
allowed to share it.
experienced, and they're not allowed to share it.
But I think the pre-tough interviews are always, to me, about just learning about their backstory and like what this opportunity means for them and kind of setting up the show. It's funny because
good thing you can research it. When you don't find out who they are till you walk into the building.
Well, so that was gonna say number one. So first thing I want to say is I want to touch on how challenging that was for you guys, because even yesterday before I got the call to go to Unfiltered, I was reaching out to you, and I'm like, we haven't seen the bios yet, right?
Yeah.
Like, we don't know who it is.
I have no idea.
I was like, maybe it was last week when I was asking, I was like, they're going to let us know beforehand, right? And you were like, I guess, I don't know. And then the email came in like literally, an hour before start?
I walked over and was like, hey, I know we can't do this. I was like, and he was like, let me send you those bios. And I was just like,
so you weren't going to send us?
We're literally in the building. I was like, I know that they planned on. I think they just, it was probably just rushing from behind for them as well, and like trying to do this and trying to do that, because it was a little bit different, the setup inside the buffet thing. So they had like I guess what would be the partner area off to one side that was set up for the tough stuff. So I think trying to balance the tough and the Ultimate Fighter, the Fight Night stuff all in the same thing. Everybody was just sort of in disarray, and I think things were just getting left off to the side. So when we got there, we're like, okay, what can we talk about? How I was like, please, I know you can't. Production doesn't want to give out any little information that sort of give whatever. I was like, but we have to sort of have an understanding where they're at in the process so we can sort of make something up to ask about.
Yeah.
So I was like, are they in the house? Are they whatever? And he was like, they're not in the house. I'm not even sure if I'm supposed to say that or whatever, but I mean.
But like, for instance, because if they hadn't done team selection, you could be like, hey, do you have a preference of what coach you want?
Yeah.
But if you know that they're already on a team, that would be a dumb question.
Yeah. So I tried to keep it generic. Was like, tell me about what you think the different coaching style might be between a Chael and a DC. Just, give me your thoughts of them as coaches, yada, 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 and just try to keep it as pretty generic. But at the same time, we did get the bio thing, but it's like until I think the last guy, when there was a little bit of break, I had the time, because it was literally back to back to back, to actually pull up his thing and sort of ask some questions.
It wasn't like you were reading his
thing.
Oh, that's crazy.
And I was just
that's
like,
not easy, man. That's not easy to do.
Is.
Essentially 16 blind interviews.
And
to make them, hopefully have some type of quality content in it whatsoever, where people will enjoy watching or people will learn
something. And so that
something.
the guys up there feel like they're getting something out of it too. Like, I understand for them, this is the first time that they're being put in. Well, I mean, granted, some of them have experience. There was like an LFA champion and some other. So it's not the first time they've ever been in it for some, but this is their first involvement with like UFC stuff.
Right.
Outside of like the producers and people to get on the show and whatever little interviews that they had to do for the tryouts, this is the first thing. So almost for us, I was like, I want this to be cool for them too, so they get a chance to talk a little bit about where they're at, and you get to see a little bit of their personality. And the only reason, so initially they wanted it to be like Ultimate Media Day style, where they're all going to be sitting in the seat. So we'd have like, say, a team and a team. I guess what that does in one point, it kind of tells you who the teams are, depending on how they lay it out, because they would either, if they were in the house already, they usually would bus them over together. The team would be in together. So that kind of gives a clue. So they didn't want to maybe do that particular thing. But by not doing that and putting them all up on the dais one at a time, forced us all to come up with questions to ask everyone. I was just going to do a mashup and just going to go busting through the room and say, okay, give me this little bit. And you don't have to ask everything from everybody. If you know you got good sound bites, just give me a little bit of something else to color it, But since it was like up there, so it was like, okay, let's try to get something from us, but also help them enjoy this moment.
Absolutely.
Not that that's our job.
Nah, but you want to, right?
That's the stuff that we always talk about when you're there at the beginning of their career. And their thing, there's faces that when I see them a year or two down the line, I might not remember them, but they might remember
100%.
me because they're taking in that whole moment, Just like going into, we'll talk about the Ultimate Fight, it's the Ultimate Fight, UFC Fight Night 251, whatever. This is Gregory Rodriguez's first main event, and so he's taken in this memory of everything that this fight means to him as a headliner. Because I asked Jared, I brought up about how, this is his first night. Is this going to change the way he remembers it, that he feels, is his anxiety, blah, 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 whatever sort of things. He's like, I can't speak to him. He's like, but I can remember my first time that I headlined. And he started reciting all the little things. So, like, these moments play out in their heads, and they record it all. So whether these guys don't maybe recognize us, or we might not, see them or whatever, this is something for them as well. And we get to take a part of a history with them.
And that, honestly, like, number one, I've always talked about this, I feel honored to help be a chapter of their lives. You know what I mean? Like, each one of those fight weeks is like a chapter of their career, of their lives. And so I'm honored to be there. But from a professional perspective, or even if you want to say a selfish perspective, you're building a relationship that, what if that person does end up becoming a UFC champion someday or whatever, and they're like, you know what I remember? I remember when I was in the Ultimate Fighter, man, and there were like, there were a handful of media in there, and I could tell some of them didn't even want to look at me, and they didn't want it. And you were asking me, I remember that. You made me feel so comfortable. I was so nervous, and you made me feel comfortable. That goes a long way towards like how you can interact for the rest of their career.
For the rest of their career,
man.
Remember when you were in that old shut down buffet space?
Bro, so you know what's funny?
It's already got built-in memories right from the get-go.
I thought this was so funny. So we today on UFC Unfiltered, and I think the episode comes out first
UFC
thing
Unfiltered
tomorrow.
with John Morgan?
Yeah, the UFC Unfiltered with John Morgan, sometimes featuring Jim Norton or Matt Serra, but we had Angela Hill, which was great because she's a fantastic interview. She's so easy to interview.
She's incredible.
But then we also had Kelvin Gastelum as well, and so it was funny, and I've told the story here before, but I'll just never forget it. Interviewing Kelvin Gastelum for the first time,
whose fight just got put into the Hall of Fame.
Bro, amazing!
That was a killer fight.
A killer fight, and I love the fight with Pfeiffer in Mexico.
Yeah.
Like, that's gonna be great. But I'll never forget because it was at the old Tough Gym, and going and interviewing Kelvin Gastelum and interviewing the whole cast, and I'll just never forget leaving there and be like, I like that Kelvin kid, but like he's gonna get his ass beat, dude. Like, cause he was, he was like the youngest one in there, and he was. I mean, he's not the biggest talker now, but back then he was even like more like kind of shy and reserved, and I was just like, that dude has no. Like, why did they bring him in here? This poor guy.
Sacrificial lamb, which that term came up today a couple times.
Did it really?
Yeah, I think it was Jared Cannonier brought it up when he's talking about how sometimes when they have. Gatekeepers and somebody's always like the sacrificial lamb. He's like, but I don't like that term, blah, 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 blah. But it's just funny.
It is.
Yeah, sacrificial term
was a great one.
Term of the day.
Ultimate Fighter getting started. I tell you what, man. So I was obviously like you, and I'm sure everybody in there, I was definitely looking forward to Cormier and Chael. I mean, great selections as coaches, and they were as fantastic, obviously, as you expect to be. I love the idea of them being up there simultaneously because they were just kind of riffing off each other.
It was perfect, and they had a bit of a schedule. There's even a point where you saw Daniel kind of looking at his watch and stuff because they had a producer that was going to take him off to do something right afterwards. So I know there was definitely a crunch, and that was the best way to do it. But honestly, for them, it was even better because every question that was sort of open-ended, they could both take their little spiel off it, and then they would play off of each other. And then some of the interactions and then the teasing back and forth made perfect. It was just perfect. Like, it just sort of came out that when I was asking about who was on their coaches, Chael said they had Mike Fowler, and DC was like Mason Fowler.
Yeah.
And DC's like, what? That traitor?
I saw that.
I was like, and it wouldn't have happened if they weren't up there together, and it was just funny. And then they laid into the producer, they started going off on different other little things, and it just worked out perfectly having them both up there. But the best part that I thought that really resonated with me, they both had been coaches before. They both been there before. They both understand that they want to make a mark on these fighters. They said that with what they're doing, there's power. You could literally break a fighter. You have these fighters that are going to be looking and doing everything that they say because they've been to where these guys want to get to. If you give them the wrong information, or if you overwork them, if you overtrain them, they're not going to perform well. So they understand that there's some real severity by what they say and what they do. But the thing that I saw that came from, one, I think their experience of being up there together or being coaches before and having a friendship was like, so say I'm coaching a guy and I'm not vibing with him, and I just think that he would be better with DC. I'm gonna say, DC, you want to do this, you want to work with this guy. They would be up for a trade, and they would be able to they would work that out. We've never seen people just grandly, openly sort of just try to set a process where they can do a mid-season trade like that, where they just work it out. I did like it though. At the very end, DC made sort of a clarification or an addition to that. He's like, I'm not going to just suggest that. He's like, but if a fighter feels like he might feel better at the other one, come to me. Say I think I might be better on the other team, and we'll fucking push you on the other side. He's like, but, I'm not just going to actively say, hey, Chael, I think you should take this guy or whatever. But if it did come to the point, I like the fact that they were like, that's how it's not just about hey, you're my guys, you're stuck with me or whatever. I want you to benefit from this experience. I want you to potentially get into the UFC and do whatever. And if I see that I think you might benefit better from Chael style or whatever, like, let's talk about it.
Yep.
Let's work it. And I was like, would you have ever done that before? You know, and then DC was like, I think it's because they were retired. You know, like that sense of competition is different. Like, it's me. I'm going to build these champs or whatever. But being retired and having been there and understanding, I think maybe more the gravity of it's not about you and your ego as the coach, but what is best for these fighters trying to get in there.
Pretty cool.
And I was like, dude, this is two of the best options you ever could put as coaches, and part of it is because of that working relationship between the two of them.
Yep.
So I mean, I think the guys that are in this season, it's going to be fantastic for them because I think the coaches are bringing in solid people on their team.
Rosters of
it's pretty ridiculous.
The coaching roster is insane.
It's sick. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the season just in the sense of we're not going to see some like overplayed out angry coach drama that sometimes just feels sort of fake-ish and whatever. Like, I literally hope that this is going to be a funny season where characters are going to kind of shine, but hopefully we get some great fights, and then we're going to get to see Chael and DC even more so under like a little spotlight. You know, they have the show together, so people can already watch plenty of them, but I think that chemistry that they have built from experience over and over, and then now putting it in a scenario where they could focus on athletes instead of like, oh, hey, you two carry the show, banter, be funny, be whatever. They could be all that as people, but they have the buffer of it's about other subjects. You know, they're just a side little bit, whatever.
They're going to try to get Chiesa and Covington going at it.
Dude, how cool was that as a suggestion?
I like that.
I was like,
to be honest, I like it.
Wow. The more they kept talking about it, I was like, this is gold.
And obviously I've known Chiesa for a long time, and he is not a fan of Covington. Not like that's any hidden secret or anything. He knows, you know.
I guarantee, it just makes itself in the sense of like just like the drama, because you're not going to see drama between DC and Chael. They might give a little something. Oh, it was funny when DC when he was talking about when Chael was like saying something like, "I'm ready to be a bad boy. DC's a good boy." And he's like, "Chael, you keep looking at me with these rose-colored glasses."
Like, I cheated one time.
He's like, "I cheated one time." I was like, "Daniel, are you admitting this right now?" I was like, people, do we understand what he's saying right here?
That was hilarious. I was like, he just straight out said it. He didn't even be like, I've been accused of doing something. He's like,
they showed my butt before. Blah, blah. I was like, no, you can't take that shit back, Daniel.
Chael was like, no, you put the towel in front of you. You were just trying to hold yourself up. You're not. Oh my God, that was like, you know what else I just realized too? So the trade thing stood out to me, and I thought it was funny too. This literally just occurred to me. When DC was like, I also think, you know what, the coin flip, I think that should decide everything. Oh. I just realized the coin flip already happened. If they've got, they've got teams, he had to have won the coin flip, because if they've got teams already, then they are drafted. Because he was like,
because if they win, right? So if they win now, they get to pick the next one, right? You carry momentum.
Usually you have the coin flip, and whoever has the coin flip gets the first pick, but that means the other team gets to pick the first fight.
Right.
And DC was like, I think we should just tell the producers that whoever wins that, whoever it may be, that's fate, and they should pick everything. And at first, Chael was like, yeah. And DC was like, so you're good with that? He's like, no. I just realized it already happened, bro. Yeah. So he was sitting out there in front of us trying to get himself the first pick of the fights too, man. That's great. It was a lot of fun. And I'll tell you what, selfishly, I was bummed that I wasn't there too, just to be able to ask DC, because he had an Oklahoma State sweatshirt on, and obviously we just did Oklahoma
I didn't even
State.
Think about that.
We just did an Oklahoma State meet this past weekend, which was really good, man. With Little Rock, they were winning halfway through on match day, and then, you know, the depth of Oklahoma State, man. Yeah. It's just by the end, you know, they rattled off.
I thought he was going to say something the other day when he was on the mic, but he actually gave a shout out to his were they high school team that he coaches or whatever.
Yeah.
They just,
Gilroy High School, I believe.
Yeah, did something. I don't know if they won states or
Probably
did something. They did something that I remember he gave credit. Because I remember when he was talking about, they started talking about wrestling, and I thought he was going to give a shout out to Oklahoma State for winning that meet.
Yeah.
When he ended up bringing up that one, but I'm sure Oklahoma State has meets all the time.
Oh, yeah, they're undefeated this year. They're doing incredibly well. David Taylor was there, so it was fun. It was funny. So David Taylor, when he was going for his final Olympic run, he actually called a couple of the duels for us on match day.
Oh, that's cool.
Now he's the head coach of Oklahoma State, obviously his first year. But it was funny because I was talking to Shane Sparks before the duel started. I was like, How about our guy DT, huh? Couldn't cut it as a commentator, had to settle for this role. You know what I mean? We gave him a little tryout, and he just couldn't handle it, man. So,
he just thought he'd just go coach a team.
Yeah, he's like, well, I guess I'll just go coach Oklahoma State, man. I guess this really isn't for me. So
yeah, that's not a bad fallback.
Not bad at all, man. So good stuff at the Old Friday. Like I said, we'll talk about the upcoming UFC this weekend. I did want to point out one thing real quick. So every week, of course, I post the rankings updates. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I get a first look. I get a sneak peek at them as one of the voting members of the official UFC rankings pool.
Yep.
And so I always put those out. And there were some changes that were made. I will say I was a little surprised. Zhang Weili stayed at number 2 pound for pound for the women. I honestly thought with that solid performance over Tatiana Suarez, plus everything else given, I thought maybe she would move over Valentina Shevchenko. Valentina stayed at number 1. There are a couple of changes, but the tweet that I sent out that has gotten the most interaction, when I do this every now and every couple months, whatever, is I'll just update the number of athletes in each division basically because I get to see.
I did see that.
So I get to see the entire roster, right? Because basically when you go in to vote, basically there's a web program and everybody that's eligible is in there, and you just kind of drag them and drop them into where you want to be, right? And the one that everybody latched onto is honestly the one that stood out to me the most too, especially when you consider the roster move they made lately of getting rid of Jairzinho Rosenstruck.
Yep.
But they're 30 heavyweights right now.
Yeah.
30.
That's crazy because I thought it was there one that had 60?
So there's the women's bantamweight only has 32.
Oh, okay.
So the women's divisions all have less than 50. Light heavyweight only has 40. So it's not like a ton at light heavyweight either. But then the next lowest is flyweight at 50. But that 30 number, like.
Okay, so I read it wrong because I remember looking and I remember thinking that I was surprised by the heavyweight. So I must have just remembered the number wrong. But the heavyweights did stand with me where I was surprised.
So it stood out to me. So it's funny. Like I said, I'm talking about the way we do the ranking. Basically, you go in there and the champ obviously is locked in. That's at the top, right? And then you have 1 through 15 underneath, and you kind of drag and drop from the roster into the place you want it to be. So there's 16 spots. Well, the roster is right next to where you drag and drop it into. So normally you got to scroll through the roster. Well, there's 16 ranked and 14 not, so you don't even scroll. Like there's empty places over there. There's so few. Like there's not even a scroll on the roster. There's just literally all the names.
It doesn't keep them in the. It doesn't keep a prior order, so that you can make it easy.
It does. Yeah, yeah.
That'd be a pain in the butt.
No, I'm just saying the first time you do it, or if you want to make changes, you drag them in there. But it does keep them in there. But yeah, I think so. I don't know. I was thinking about it. I mean, so it stood out to everybody. It caused this big reaction. And it is weird because, like, Mick Maynard, man, like, Mick knows his stuff. And Mick has a plan. And Mick understands, what it takes to build a division. I mean, look at what he did with flyweight, man. I think he's done a phenomenal job with flyweight.
But think about it. A lot of times there's one heavyweight fight on a card.
Well, I started thinking about
30, I mean, like,
there's not that many guys out there. Like, so I started thinking, man, I can't believe they only have 30. Now, again, I am still very surprised that they let Jairzinho go. Now, I haven't seen if Jairzinho's commented on it, if maybe it's possible that he asked for his release, right? Like, maybe he's like, hey, I want to go somewhere else. I want to pursue free agency, whatever the case may be. I don't know. I haven't seen the exact circumstances of that. But honestly, there's not a lot of people
asking.
I can't either. But I'm
you
always try to give benefit of the doubt, right?
I
always try to give benefit of the doubt. I would really like to see Vadim Nemkov come over. I think he would make a very big impact right away. I think his athleticism, I think he would make a big impact. There's not a ton of names. And, I saw a lot of people immediately going, like, they got to go back and get Francis. They're not bringing Francis back.
They're not getting Francis back.
That's not happening.
That's done.
Right? This is not – I could see – I would like to see, you could maybe make a case like a Phil DeFries, who has done an amazing job over in KSW. I mean,
see that.
That's one that you could throw in there. But, I mean, you're talking about singular. Like,
that's the Ultimate Fighter. You could have had heavyweights on that. The Contender, they still try to bring in heavyweights or whatever. But, I mean, looking at there's one heavyweight fight on this card. There's one on the next one. There's 2 light heavyweights on the next one. If you're only fighting one heavyweight on a card and you got 30 people, you're pretty good for that, You
don't need that many,
You don't need that many, if you're not going to go that heavy in actually using heavyweights. But I don't know if they need to really, like, bring back a bunch of people that have been there before unless they're just like, we can't match up our top-ranked guys with anybody, and we don't want to bring in somebody brand spanking new and throw them up to the top. If they do a better job of, they could literally have a contender, just make a whole contender series episode of heavyweights and just load up 5 heavyweights right there, and then at this current rate, that takes care of you for like 3 months.
It's true.
It's
true. I mean, I don't know who they like. I guess that's my biggest thing is when you see it, like at first you're like, wow, the UFC is really dropping the ball here. But I don't know who they'd go get. Like, I look at, because you look at the PFL's wrestling, like, I do think Renan Fajeda could compete in the heavyweight division.
Sure.
Dennis Goldsov, I think, could compete in the heavyweight. Like,
sure.
These are all guys that would matter. Like, and it wouldn't take them very long to be top 15. You know what I mean? There's only 30.
But they're just locked down.
But they're locked down. They're not going anywhere. So that's what I'm saying. Anywhere. Like, so I can't look at anybody that's on the PFL roster.
Yep.
Like I said, Vadim Nemkov maybe. Like I said, Phil DeFries probably isn't going anywhere at KSI. So I don't know. I don't know that they're really missing out on anybody.
Yeah.
So I think you can criticize them, and I get it. Like I was a little bit shocked to see it too. But I think when you really analyze it, I think maybe they're just good. Like you're saying, like you know what, man, we'll just
they're able to do
have
what
one fight, and that'll be that.
I mean, if that seems to be the working order, I mean, there's so much excitement. It'd be one thing if it was just, say, a card of just male fighters, like then you would think like, okay, well, the heavyweights, we need some heavyweight action. We need some middleweights, we need some welterweights, we got flyweights, we got featherweights, we got bantamweights, and then the fact that now they have like the whole women's divisions that they could put in there, like you don't need a ton of heavyweights if you're only going to throw in 1 or maybe 2 at the most. Like you don't see a lot of these cards with multiple ones. I think that they have the time and the luxury, if this is how they've been building up, that they could start cultivating the new talent. And I think that's what it's going to be is, with things like the Ultimate Fighter or Contender Series. At this point, it's Contender Series because they seem to just the Ultimate Fighter seems to always be the smaller weights. And not that welterweight or whatever is a smaller weight, but right. I mean, like, this is flyweights and welterweights, I believe. So, I mean, like, this was an opportunity that they could have had some people come out of this one, but they're not bringing anybody. But, I mean, contenders have just – once we get back to contenders, we're going to start getting some more heavyweights that make it into the roster, hopefully. But I think, if anything, they're at a point now where, yeah, you're not going to get the big established guys that have – rooted themselves over the PFL. Dana's not big on trying to just go back and get guys that have been in the UFC and not there anymore because they're not there for a reason. Just let the process take its time, and guys will eventually start coming up there. All these fighters eventually get bigger and bigger, and there's always heavyweights out there. I think it's just a matter of them getting into the farm system, if you will, and start working their way up. But they'll get there. But yeah, certainly not. The fact that there's only 30 was surprising to me, but when you look at how many are actually making it onto cards, it doesn't seem a big deal. I mean, like,
true.
The next 2 events, there's four guys taken care of, I mean, like, and that's like over a span of weeks.
I honestly think that's just their strategy is that, like, look, there's not a ton of big name or big, heavyweights out there, and so let's not overload and let's just keep it lean.
Yeah. And I mean, sometimes, everybody loves the big heavyweights when you get these big crazy knockouts and these big action, but a lot of times we don't get that like we used to from that big heavyweights. The guys are more well-rounded. They have better skill sets. We're getting a lot more decisions on the heavyweights. So it's almost like nobody's missing, It's not like I think before people used to get very, very excited for the heavyweight because they almost guaranteed or felt like it was a guaranteed finish.
Right.
Now guys are so well-rounded. You're getting decisions after decisions after decisions. And I think people are just like, whatever. Half the time, people are just bitching about the heavyweights on it.
100%.
So I'm just like, who cares? They put a heavyweight on there and people bitch about it. So it's just like, whatever.
I was the one name that does stand out, but I'm trying to figure out what the path would be. So I don't know if you saw it over the weekend, but John Jones was mat side for Gable Stevenson at the University of Minnesota, winning in collegiate wrestling. And obviously, Gable Stevenson is an absolute stud, standout wrestler. Went to MMA for a little while. That didn't necessarily work out, but gold medalist, national champ. Looks like he's going to win another national champ. Friends with John Jones. Obviously, John Jones is going to his college wrestling matches. Obviously, he was a part of the training camp. I wonder if I'm trying to think what the path would be. Like, that dude is an athletic specimen, but I know he's got the wrestling training, but I don't know that he's done striking up to this point other than maybe just messing around. I'm trying to think what the best path would be. Like, if you tried to put Gable Stevenson on the regional circuit and have him take some fights and build up, I think you would struggle to find anybody that was willing to compete against him of any value.
Yeah.
I'm 1-0 on the regional scene. I want to fight the Olympic gold medalist. Like, nah, I'm good with that. Thanks anyway. Appreciate you. I don't think that would happen. So I wonder. I mean, you almost have to like bring. I don't want to say straight to the UFC because that's. But yeah, it's almost like a Bo Nickel type situation where just like as fast as you can get him in, you get him in. I think he. I honestly, I've never seen the dude throw a punch. I don't even think he ever competed for WWE, to be honest. I think they just had him under like a
little
like
developmental training thing or whatever.
And if I'm wrong about that, I apologize, but I don't follow wrestling.
It seems like he's done work with some of the guys where he's trained some of the guys. So you figure at some point they were like, here, hit some pads.
Hit some pads.
I've
never seen him throw a punch, is what I was going to say. I've never seen him, and we all know that, man, we don't know how people can take a punch, right? Like, that's a big part of it. I mean, there's some people that just get punched in the face, and they're like, this is not for me, dude. Like,
he's a solid dude.
If
he catches you with a punch,
he's an athlete.
He's gonna do some damage. And that's the thing. It's a lot easier to teach them to be an effective, maybe not the best striker. It's a lot easier to take a high-level wrestler and make him an effective striker as opposed to making a very good striker an effective wrestler.
Yeah.
You might get them to have some sort of wrestling defense, but you're not going to make a wrestler overnight.
You can't.
It's a lot quicker.
Of a dude that's been doing that since he was a kid. Like, you can't teach that.
That's the stuff that just comes like a reflex. It's like instinct without him even knowing. A guy tries to go down to take you into a single leg or a double leg. Next thing you know, they're spreading their legs out and they're shucking it off. They're like, ha, please.
I saw Bo Nickel interacting with somebody on Twitter the other day. It was like, bro, it doesn't look like your wrestling is that good. It's just like.
He's like, I haven't had to wrestle. It's different. It's different. You know, like, I mean, when you see.
And MMA wrestling is different, but it's like, bro, settle down.
Wrestling, like a defensive wrestling and trying to do it, like, they're not wrestling in there. That's not wrestling. Like, he's not actually doing wrestling moves to, like, pin or do whatever. Because you could eat an elbow.
Yeah.
You can eat these other things. So you're trying to wrestle and defend yourself at the same time, so you're not going to see his pure form of wrestling. But it's ultimately where his great sense of balance, how he's able to kind of center himself and why he has such effective strikes when he does throw them, why he's able to generate some power. Nobody's going to say he's a crazy knockout artist or whatever, but those wrestlers and their base and the way they're able to sort of center themselves when they're able to kind of throw things, they don't throw as many crazy looping shots because they're used to being able to keep their balance, and so they're not just going crazy and throwing whatever. But, I mean, I think Gable would be a monster.
I want to see. I actually want to see.
I think he would be a monster. I mean, you got guys like Jones that is giving this dude all the credit and like, dude, you need to come over. That's saying something.
Can you? Can you imagine like? It's not like you're bringing him over and he's just training with some random team or whatever. Like
training with the best in the world.
Yeah, what if it's like, hey man, John, can you imagine? And it really did, not that I hadn't thought about Gable coming before, I had, but seeing John at his collegiate wrestling match, and it wasn't like they were wrestling in Albuquerque, you know what I mean? Where he was just like, oh, you're in town, like I'll roll over there, like Minnesota. I thought that was so cool.
Was that recent?
Yeah, it was this past weekend. It was Sunday.
How was he still wrestling for collegiate?
Well, there was
I was like, I don't understand this. He left and went to like the Olympics.
Yep.
Came back. I was like, he's like 24 or something.
I think he's older than
26 or something. I'm like,
I think he's 26.
I'm like, is he on like a second grad degree or something? Like, how do you get clearance to go back in there and wrestle? That's just like, if you're opposite of him, you got to be like, Coach,
come on.
What is going on? Like, come on.
His first year of college was 2019. He finished third. Then he ended up winning 2 titles in 2021-22. But
left. He graduated.
And then left and went to. But he retained 1 year of eligibility because COVID gave everybody an extra year because they didn't have a national championship that year. So they made a decision to give everybody an extra year of eligibility so they could actually go for another national championship. So that gave everybody – he's never taken a medical red shirt, but you're allowed a medical red shirt. It's his 5th year. So he got an extra year of eligibility because of COVID.
I didn't know if it was like the NIL stuff changed things and threw something else in the mix. They're like, hey, if we can start paying people, you can bring back professional athletes.
Oh, that's 100% what it is. Well, not professional athletes, but – yeah,
he's a professional athlete, though. Like,
that's
come
100%.
on.
They're like, hey, we got this NIL deal. Like, you want to come back and wrestle 20-year-olds.
Sure. You want to come back and wrestle some kids?
Dude hasn't lost a match in college in the last 4 years, man. That's
that makes more sense because I saw that picture and I was so confused, so I didn't realize.
Are they doing an exhibition match?
I was like, I don't understand.
Well, so
it doesn't make sense. But if this is his 5th year, okay, that's not a big leap.
Imagine John Jones has like one more fight and he's like, you know what, man, I'm done. But guess what? I want to coach you. I want you to be part of my team. I want you to be my project. Like, I want to manage you. I want to whatever. And, like, you get my team. I mean, I just think it'd be pretty amazing to see what he does. All right, before we talk about this weekend's UFC, we do have some PFL announcements. We know their first round of fights are going to be on starting in April. It's all going to be down in Universal Studios in Florida. And I will say this. First of all, I like the fact that they basically set up residency at Universal Studios. That will save them a ton of costs and not having to move the thing around. So I think that is wise on their part. And I'm going to tell you the other thing. I love the fact that they picked Thursday and Friday nights for all their events. No Saturdays. Not going against the UFC. Let's go on a different night. I love it, man. There's one. I will say there's one Friday, April the 11th. And we don't know which divisions are fighting on what days yet. But that one, the main card airs at 11:30 Eastern, which is a little bit of a late start. I haven't looked at the schedule. I imagine there must be other stuff going on. And I should say, by the way, ESPN,
like the whole card starts at that late?
The main card.
Just the main card.
Yeah.
But it's not like their main cards are that deep. It's like, what, usually four or five?
4 or 5.
Yeah,
it's not that bad. I mean, a UFC main card starts
good
at
for
10
us out
PM
here.
Eastern. Great for us. I love it.
Bring on the 8 o'clock.
I love it.
Let's go.
I love it. The best place to watch sports, Pacific. But ESPN2, ESPN Plus, and ESPN Deportes as well. So they're getting some nice distribution.
That's good.
But yeah, I don't know. I still think they're not necessarily getting a ton of excitement or a ton of. I think you got to see the brackets put together first. I know they released the welterweights and they released the featherweights. So that's good. They're starting to release the rosters, but I don't know, man. I thought those were two very responsible decisions when I saw that. Number one, you're set up in one place. That's going to save you a ton in cost, and I think that's good. You don't have to worry too much about selling tickets. I know they'll try to sell a little bit down in South Florida, but I don't think they have to worry too much because I know I think it's a pretty small building that they use there, so it's kind of more of a studio-type environment, which, again, I don't think is a bad thing. If the UFC is doing it at the Apex, I know people bitch about it, but from an operational cost procedure and standards, it makes a lot of sense, and I love the fact that it's Thursday and Friday, man. I think
that's smart.
Trying to go on Saturday nights against the UFC is just not not wise.
And it's solid roster of fighters that released between the divisions, the welterweight and the featherweight. I'm just looking over them right now. That's pretty solid.
Yeah, I'm anxious.
Be some good fights.
I still don't think we've seen. They've revealed how and unless I missed it, on how they're going to seed them just yet.
Yeah.
And I also don't know. What do you think is better? I was actually thinking about this too, because like the NFL playoffs, right? They reseed after the round, right? Like whoever, it's not like an 8-man bracket. It's an 8-man bracket. You fill it out like college basketball or whatever. Like that tournament's laid out. And we
that
got
seat
it.
stays the
That's
same
the way
all the
you
way
go,
through.
right?
Yeah.
Then you have like NFL, which is like, well, you have your first round matchups, and then whoever had the bye gets the lowest seed. You know what I mean? How it's always like, well, if they win, they'll go here. If they lose, what do you think is better, to just do the 8-man and it is what it is, or to do 8, cut it down to 4, and then make the matchups again? Like, I guess the only way you could get away with that and not have the same accusations you had before is if you were like, after 8, highest seed fights lowest seed, and then the 2 in the middle go against each other. Do you think that's better, or do you think it's better to just leave it as a bracket?
I don't know. I think both sound exciting. I mean, I think it's good for the fighters in the sense of if they see the bracket, they kind of know what the potential things is laid out. There's no confusion on their part.
Yep.
They can kind of stay prepared. So I think maybe if anything, that might give them the best part to prepare for who's ahead.
Yep.
But I do like the fact of let your performance sort of dictate where you fit into it. It certainly would motivate you if you know that you're going to have if you just barely eke by and your performance is not great, that if you make it to the next round, you might be slotted against the number one performing person.
Yep.
I better perform pretty well in that first one, but I don't know. I guess both have their merits, but I do like the idea of and we kind of said that before. I like the fact that they know the potential people that are ahead of them.
Right.
I'm all for that first thing. I want that first selection to be completely random. I'd like to see just a
like to
lotto
see that
pull,
too.
just pull from a hat,
I'd
and
like to see
then
that
where
too.
you're set, because then you can't say anybody's favorite, because then it's like, okay, yes, these brackets got laid out a certain way, but it was completely, just luck of the draw how you got that seating. There's no one spot, there's no two spot, there's no three, there's no four. You just lock them in to a slot. This guy goes in this one, this goes to this, and they could just pick whatever, and they could just go down the damn line or something. Maybe just pick your corners and then go fill up the middle or something.
Yep.
But if it's completely without any sort of like merit going in, where it's just pure luck and just luck of the draw,
Yep.
then just let it ride out.
I'd like to see that too, man. But now
Because it's hard to not think that there is, and I get it. We all get it. You want your
wanna
big
make the best
favorites. You
matchups
want them to stay in the tournament as long as possible. So you don't want your two best guys fighting, your two most popular fighting in the first round, and then you're just like, why am I watching it anymore if those are your people?
I know.
Because you're losing one of the best guys. But
that's the drawback
there's
of this
something
format.
about
you
it,
lose some control. You lose control of matchmaking. When you do season and tournaments, you lose control of matchmaking, right? So that's a drawback because you want to make the biggest fights available to get people to tune in.
And how do you deal with injuries and all? I see the alternate things there. That's always kind of throw a monkey wrench in it. But I just like the fact of, I think a lot of people, I feel like when we used to watch Bellator fights and some of the PFL ones without even picking. Sometimes like when you try to do the staff picks for like the UFC ones, I felt it was a lot more of a challenge, like deciding who was maybe going to pick it, because it felt a lot more even. There was times where we'd go through some of these cards for like the Bellator picks and PFL. It's like, oh wow, clearly everybody wants me to pick the the red corner or the blue corner in this one. It's like it was easy just sort of to tell. And that's not that there is anything wrong with that, I understand, but in the sense of just trying to be fair and open, and when you see a tournament going in there, just make it seemingly,
it just needs
as fair as possible. Taking any bias out of it going into the slot process. You've already picked a group of fighters. That was your chance to pick who you wanted to be in the pool. There's your choice. Now make it completely random where they fit.
See, I just think it has to be 100% transparent one way or the other, right? Because they've already been accused of like, hey man, we see what you're doing here on the seasons, right? And I think people are going to be like, hey man, we see what you're doing. I think either like, you just make it random, like you said, just draw it out of a hat, you know what I mean? And then you're going to have conspiracy theorists that say, oh well, but that's dumb, okay? We know it's random.
You can get an AI sponsor or some shit like
the Smart Cage picks it.
Smart Cage has been watching, and now it's making its picks.
That would be great if they had like the computer voice. Just
tell me if I'm wrong. Somebody told me that
selects.
Somebody said that when AI has a hiccup or something, they call it hallucinating.
What?
I'm like, so they're already like putting like human traits or something in it or something. I forget what the context was, but somebody said something along those lines like, when AI has a hiccup or whatever, they call it hallucinating or something. And I was like,
gosh.
You're already giving it human terms. I mean, it's getting to the point in the next like generation or so or soon where people are going to sort of say that it is worthy of being sentient. They already say it's at the level of like human intellect.
And the art creation side of it, like
it's pretty sick.
It's insane. Like the video creation, the art creation,
it's unreal how quick and everything it's getting.
I imagine I am not an artist by any chance, but like I imagine like graphic artists and stuff like that, like gotta be. I guess if you're a graphic artist, I guess you just have to be like, I need to be a master of this.
You have to find a way to make it work into your workflow,
right?
Because at this point, you can't fight it.
It's not going away.
It's happening.
It ain't going away.
It's happening, So how do I incorporate this and make what I do still of value, And that's the challenge,
Yeah, because you can be out there preaching like, hey, man, I think you should really support actual artists. Like, not happening. Sorry. Like, and that's no disrespect and not saying I disagree with it, but we're just talking about a corporate world and like it's not going away whatsoever.
The kids and everybody that are, ill before they even choose trades, when they're still too young, they're going to grow up understanding that this exists and this is a part of what they use. So they're going to build their workflow and how they create things using this. Mm-hmm. Now people that already exist have to find a way to work it into their workflow of some sort, or you're just going to get surpassed at some point. It's tough, it's scary, but it kind of, it's crazy. I know you do video editing now and other stuff. What used to take hours and hours, now you could just tell it to like, hey, I'm going to circle this. Can you remove this for me? Can you clear out this background? And it's done. And you're just like, that used to take hours.
Like, you can't deny it. Like, it's huge. Like, it's massive for you. So
yeah.
All right, listen. UFC is this weekend. Fight night event. You got to speak to the top 4. Interesting main event: Jared Cannonier versus Gregory Rodriguez. I was a little surprised to look at the betting line to see Gregory Rodriguez at -225. I probably would have him as a favorite, but I'll tell you what, Jared Cannonier.
They have to just be looking at the last couple fights or something.
You have to, and I get it. Look, I'm not saying it's wrong, but
he's 40 years old.
He's 40 years old now. Not a normal 40.
He's not
by
normal 40.
You know what I mean? Like, not
I think about what I was doing
40.
10 years ago, and it was not fighting dudes in a cage.
Oh, my God. And that dude, I mean, the physical transformation that he's had from the beginning of his career till now. But, man, I mean, I guess he always kind of has a little bit of an edge to him, but I feel like he's got a little chip on his shoulder this week. Like, I am ready to show the world, like, why are you doubting me? Like, I still very much belong here, and I like that. I like that.
I mean, and it's clear. I mean, he's still got a ranking up there. I was surprised that Greg. I don't want to. It's just weird. Call him Greg. Like we did the Ultimate Fighter.
He's Gregory.
Yeah, he's Gregory. But I think he goes by Greg at times, or maybe it's just me. Maybe I just started calling everybody shorter versions today because they had all these fighters up there that had super long names, but then like their bios would be like Eggs, Alex, or something. I think I probably called him Greg today. Now I think about it, I don't know. Maybe I did. I've been saying Greg, I think, at points. I hope I didn't say it now. But
Yo, G-Man.
Yo, Reg. I don't even say Greg. I just say Reg. Reg.
It's Heg, actually. It's Portuguese.
But, yeah, I mean, and who knows? I mean, but yeah, Jared, he's always had a bit of an edge to him. But I think anybody that's 40 years old, that he's probably tired of people trying to immediately write him off. Mm-hmm. Gregory/Greg certainly didn't do that today. Heg. Heg was giving him all kinds of respect. What was so funny, I did love the fact of, we brought up it was his first time signing posters for the first time, because we know what that means for a fighter to come in there and sign that thing.
With their picture on
just
it.
To have it, he's like, I could take this home. He's like, I can finally put a poster on the wall that's got my face and whatever.
Huge, man.
And, not that I was trying to get him emotional, I'm trying to talk, but I was like, I know what this means for you, but when he talked about how he had to fight, he was like, I was with my wife, and we were both just like, oh my God, this is amazing. We often think about what this means for the fighter, but there's no I in that team once you're married and you're a fighter. Like, your wife is your training partner. 100%. They're in there with you or whatever.
100%.
I was like, so what does this mean for her? What did she think? And he's like, it was great because, he was like, I know what I need to do on the cage. And he's like, I got my business taken care of. But when I asked him about this, he's like, this felt like this was her first time in the cage as well. Like, this was for her as well or whatever. And I was like, please, give me emotion. I was like, am I going to make this motherfucker cry? I was like, come on. I was like, I'm getting you to talk about your wife. But it was awesome because I know in the past he's talked very, very sweetly of his wife, So sometimes I like to try to tee it up just to see if I can get something from him. But I love that emotion. So here he is signing the poster for the first time. But that team, that for her, this is the first time that she can go to her friends and the family and say, this is Heg's. I'm not going to stick with that. No. This is Gregory's first time of getting the main event. And, all this work, all this effort, because it's not just him getting up early and going to whatever and doing the food prep. It's a team activity, and it's a wife. It's that team between the two of them. So, it was awesome seeing in his face and the emotion of, what this meant for, the family and what it means to his, overall family and stuff, what this potential, but seeing his reaction to signing his poster, you got to think that, going into a fight, you're either going to feel invincible because you're like, I finally made it here, or it's like,
all the way, way to the world.
Yeah, how do you not get caught up in all that, and especially, like I said, your wife's over here embracing this and taking this all, and this is means a lot to her because now you're fighting for two of you. Oh. You're fighting for the family.
I'm so happy that you point that out because we don't talk about that, I think, probably enough, but it's so true. Just imagine, it's a journey you go on together, right? Number one, in order to, this is a selfish, to be good at it, man, you got to be selfish because you have to, it's a ton of work. Rest and recovery is huge, right? So you got to be like, hey, I'm sorry, but I need to chill. I got to do that. Then you got, like you said, all the food prep and then the weight cutting.
If you're sore and you're beat up and you're like, I can't get up off the couch.
Yeah.
There's somebody in there that's making you food that says you need to eat this.
Yes.
And you're like, you're right. Here, let me do this.
So you imagine that, and in the beginning, can you imagine me going on that journey together where you're like, I'm going to chase this dream of being a professional fighter?
Okay, you are. I believe in you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what kind of money does this professional fighting work? Well, in the beginning, I can usually make like $1,000 a fight probably in the beginning, and if I sell some tickets, I'll get percentage off that, and then okay, but you can get to the UFC, right? Like, oh yeah, I can get to the UFC, and once you get there, the big money comes. Well, you see, it's 12 and 12 to start. You know what I mean? Now, granted, we could get millions. I mean,
we can get multiple fights, in a year.
You know what I mean? Like, it takes a long way.
Yep.
Now, once you get to the top, I mean, we've seen it. We've seen the millionaires have been made, and yes, but it's not easy. And to take care of a family while you're doing all that, you got to have somebody that believes in you, man. I'll never forget it, man. My wife, when I was talking about leaving MMA Junkie and kind of chasing doing commentary and working with CFFC full time, like, I mean, that was like a little bit nerve-wracking, you know what I mean?
I bet.
And because I'd always said when I left the restaurant business to start working with MMA Junkie full time.
Yeah, that was a big discussion.
That was huge, right?
Yep.
And I'd always said, like, at that time, wasn't married, didn't have a mortgage, didn't have a kid, and I was like, man, I made that decision once in my life. I'm like, I could never do it again. And it came time to make it again. And I've said this before, but I want to say it again because it is so cool that my wife said to me at the time, she's like, I believe in you. You're the hardest working dude I've ever met, and I know that you will take care of this family and you'll make it work. And I was just like, damn.
Wow.
That's great. You know what I mean? I was like, that is exactly what I need to hear. So it kind of reminds me that, like, that's the kind of commitment you have. Like, you're going on this journey together. It's like, Gregory, I believe in you. Like, I know you will take care of us as a family. That can't be easy,
It doesn't. I'm not even emotional. I feel as I've gotten older, I definitely get more emotional about that kind of shit. But I love hearing that stuff, and then to see, like, we had a lot of fighters even on the Ultimate Fighter that are trying to get in the houses. Fiance's pregnant. Somebody had like kids on the way. Like, the opportunity, like, that these people are going to give everything that they can because they have a chance that so many guys that they dreamed about to try to get in there, now they're at the doorstep. What do you do about it? What do you do to get yourself in there to make a difference? You're going to get to work with Chael Sonnen or Daniel Cormier. You already talked to Dana yesterday. Like, stuff's happening. Like, what can you do? So, yeah, to hear what fighters have to do. And I think that's with anybody. I think anybody in any career, you're at a point where, when you need to provide for somebody, or even if you just want to better your own life, what are you going to do to do it?
Yep.
Nobody's going to do it to you for free. Well, nobody's ever going to give you anything. Like, we're not lucky enough to just walk down the street and somebody say, hey, I like your look.
Yep.
How about I give you a 6-figure job? Like, it's not going to happen, So, I mean, what's great about seeing these things is, like, and I think what reiterates, and I think in all of our lives, is when you see some of these things, what can it motivates me to want to get better. And it's cool to hear fighters when they do it. And I think it's always fun when you get to these points and you hear these stories to just kind of take it back in. So and it's funny because as I get older, now I watch like fucking commercials sometimes and I get like emotional. I'm like, what is going on?
Hey, bro, I ain't gonna lie. During the Super Bowl, there were a couple.
There were some good ones in there. So when I hear like fighters talk this stuff and hear Gregory talk about his family and this other stuff, I was like, wow, like we appreciate the spectacle of what it is, but behind the spectacle there is these teams and this effort and the heart and the soul and the blood, sweat, and tears. And that's why I think we respect and like the fighters so much for what they give, because it's not just about the 15 minutes in the cage. It's all the weeks and the hours and the years and the days and the lead up to it. And some of these cats that were still doing it, we're still working 40-hour jobs and stuff,
and look, I get it, man. Like, but I feel like the MMA media as a whole, I hate when they just look at a card and they'll be like, hey, man, I don't even know why I'm having it. I don't even know why this card's happening. Like, there's nothing on here where I want to see. Like, literally to every single person, it's the biggest moment of their life. I mean, because every fight is your next biggest fight. Every next fight is your biggest fight.
And it could be your last time there. It could be your
like, this is like every one of these guys and girls are chasing their dreams, sacrificing everything. And I get it. And I'm not saying that means you should give the organizations a free pass. And I think it's totally fine to be like, I think they could have done some better matchmaking here, or I wish they were doing different things with who was here. I get all that. Yeah. But don't forget, when you look at a card and you're like, man, there's nothing on here. Like, what is this? These dudes are all chasing their dreams, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
There are a lot of lives, and it's not just the fighters,
It's all the people around them,
It's all the people around them.
Damn, bro, I got all emotional.
I know. But speaking of, I love Gregory. I did lean Jared in this one. I'm not sure why, but I just went. This could be Gregory's time. Gregory's tall. He's big. He's got good striking. maybe it's the chip on Jared's shoulder. I'm here for it.
I know.
I mean,
I know it's hard to write them all. I just feel like
this was certainly a tougher
off.
choice. The co-main, I'm nothing against like Calvin. He's had the bad stretch. There was that bad knee injury that caused one thing, but like was what Yusuf even said. The 3 losses that came against top-notch dudes, so you can't really take that away. But Yusuf is fighting on another level right now. I mean, since he's came back to the UFC. He's just been exciting. He's got that Pikachu energy, using his words from what he was saying up there. And then you got a guy like, I'm
a fan.
So that was an easier pick for me.
I was actually shocked when he left the organization, man. Yeah. I thought that was one of the worst decisions ever. But maybe it worked out better for him, you know what I mean? To kind of go back and build the confidence again or whatever.
The fact that he got another opportunity to come back and look at what he's done. So obviously you can't fault the process. It probably sucked at the time. But if he says, like, when he came back, I look at it a little bit differently, I'm appreciating it differently, and maybe I guarantee he tried to fight as hard as he did now back then, but right now, man, he's just getting these crazy finishes. Got like 3 exciting finishes in a row. 2
bonuses. I mean, how much does that mean? How much is you made it to the UFC, you went back to the regional level, you know what the pay is there.
Yep.
And then you get to the UFC and you get $100,000 in bonuses. I mean, dude, like, again, it's not, are you retiring after 2 bonuses? Did it change you? No. But, I mean, if you've got some debt, if you want to pay off a house, I mean, imagine how much freedom you have to just, like, not have a mortgage payment. You know what I mean? Like, how much –
how crazy.
You know what I'm saying? Like, what if you didn't have rent every month? Like, how different would your life be? You know what I mean? It would be insane.
Massages all day, every day. 4 hands, let's go.
I love it. Yeah, man. So I mean, good for him. So that's a big opportunity for him too, in a big spot. Yeah. It's a known commodity, and I don't think you can necessarily write off Calvin Kattar. Like, he'll turn into great performances.
Yeah.
But some big. I'm actually there's some fights in here that should be a lot of fun. I'm selfishly, as a big grappling fan, and obviously somebody that's worked with Andre Petroski, I like seeing him, Andre Petroski and Rodolfo Vieira. That could be a really, really fun fight, man. Stylistically, I think he'd be a lot of fun. Man, I look down there like Gabriel Bonfim and Chaos Williams. That could be
we got
fantastic.
Both Bonfim brothers,
yeah,
right?
Both Bonfim brothers are on there. So, could
Junior Walker's Anthony Walker's brother is going to come back. He didn't have the greatest showing that first fight. He looked a little gun shy, but he's back against Dontel Mays.
Yep.
So I'm interested to see if he's going to look better than what he did. I think we were all giving him, like, it's Johnny Walker's brother. He looked scary and he's big in the press. And we were like, oh, God, this guy's going to be a beast. And then he just sort of, like, never got going.
Right.
And I was like, okay, maybe it was all hype. But I'm interested to see if he shows up for this one. But, yeah, I know some good fights. Jacqueline Cavalcanti and Julia Villa. That should be a good one.
Hey, by the way, it's funny. I didn't even realize that. Like I said, we were interviewing Angela Hill. Angela Hill's 40 as well, man.
Is she really? She looks great.
I know, right? Keeps getting better, man. Just unbelievable. So, yeah. Should be a fun little Saturday afternoon. Get back to the grind. Friday night, if you happen to be in Las Vegas or you just want to tune in on UFC Fight Pass, I'll be calling the fights at Tough Enough. So
look at that.
Yeah. Working with those guys. And
Tough Enough with John Morgan.
Let's do it. I mean, next week it'll be back to the college wrestling grind, but we'll talk about
I think I'm going to say back to the Undisputed with John Morgan. Or
Unfiltered.
I
mean, if they call me, I'm around. You know what I'm saying? Just let me know. I always enjoy it.
There's a media day to no, it's in Seattle. So
it's in Seattle next week.
Yeah, see, you're clear.
You know what's funny?
I will be there in Seattle.
I was like, man, 2025. I was like, you know what? I want to be at more media days.
Starting strong so far. How many days so far?
I haven't been to one. It's still early. It's only been a month and a half. We're only 10% through the year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah.
We'll see.
I mean, I'll do a media day if you'll do an and a half.
Oh, yikes! I think maybe we'll talk again about that Monday shift. That Monday shift. Yeah, we got to figure something out.
We got to figure that out. We'll definitely do. Apologize.
Super Bowl. I blame the Super Bowl. Super Bowl messed me up. I was like, oh yeah, Kenny, go in there and record. And I was like, I got to make my food for the Super Bowl. I'm just to peel the curtain back. You can eat things when you're like forever, and then as you get older, certain things don't, I guess, jive. So I made like meatballs and like the little smokies, all that shit that I've made for years and years. I made it this year and ate it, and maybe it was just too rich. It did not sit well the next day.
Super Bowl was not
so good. The Super Bowl was fine. It was the day after was not great. So I need to redo my menu for Super Bowls going forward or something. But yeah, Little Smokies and the meatballs was not happy. My performance was like the fucking Kansas City Chiefs. It was very shitty. It was very shitty.
Oh, that's hilarious. I tell you, I was laid out on Sunday. We got kind of lucky, just real quick, flying home. So we did college wrestling. I was in the production truck, and Justin James was on the mic with Shane Sparks, Oklahoma State and Little Rock. Then we literally bounced straight to the airport, boarded immediately. But so we flew back. Fortunately, the Wi-Fi on both the planes was good enough that I pulled up the fights. And
that's awesome.
But it was amazing because he doesn't have status with American Airlines. But because him and I were booked on the same ticket, because we knew at the same time we were going, we both got upgraded to first class on both flights. So we were sitting next to each other in first class, computer out, watching the fights. We did.
Did you share earbuds?
No. If you can connect 2 earbuds, I have learned now.
Can you really?
I will say
on your laptop.
Yeah, you can do 2 of them simultaneously.
I didn't know. It would have been cuter if you would have just
shared
split
the little wired ones or
I'm
whatever. You know what, man? There's one thing I don't like to share. I don't know why I'm weird about sharing.
No, earwax is
it's a weird thing,
it's a thing,
right?
Yeah.
But I will say that
if it's not your significant other, I would not give my fucking earbuds to somebody.
No. So so we flew from Little Rock to Dallas. Maybe had a cocktail or 2 on that flight. Had a little bit of a layover. Maybe had a cocktail or 2 on the layover. Maybe. And then obviously maybe had a cocktail or 2 on the flight home from Dallas to Vegas. And I will say
that long flight from Dallas to Vegas.
Well, it's like 2.5. It was 3 hours when you go back the other way, or whatever. But I will say that at separate times during the flight, both of us were asked to perhaps keep it
quiet
down.
Oh, my Lord. Because you're in first class. Was it night?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it wasn't late night. It was I think we.
Were the lights off?
Yeah.
Well, I guess they always turn them off. But
They
was it dark in the cabin?
It was dark in the cabin.
Oh yeah.
It was the guy was super. So there was a man and a woman in first class, and the woman, Justin, was the one that got loud first, and because Justin doesn't put away as many. He was determined to go drink with me, and I'm like, that's completely not necessary, but okay. So he got the first warning, and it was from the lady that was in there, and she was like, shh. I mean, she literally just gave us the shh, quiet, and I was like, oh, sorry about that. Then the other one, Justin had to get up and go to the restroom. The guy came over that was the flight attendant first class, and this was the nicest. And I've been quieted a lot in my life. I mean, from the time I was in school, you know what I mean? This was the nicest. He's like, sir, he was like, I just want to let you know, you have a fantastic voice. He's like, you have a fantastic voice. If I had your voice, he's like, my PA announcements would be so much better. He's like, but can you keep it down for me, please? It's a little bit. He's like, it carries. It carries a little bit, And
we know this.
I was like,
that's pretty funny.
That's been the story of my life, sir. But I
That's
thought it was
awesome.
very, very polite of him.
That is nice.
Very nice. So we had a good time watching the fight. So obviously he was. It was hard for him to watch because obviously his 2 teammates lost title fights, and so that was frustrating for him. But it is what it is. Last thing I'll say, if you haven't been watching Beyond the Cage on Vice, I'm anxious to see this. This week is the rise of Pride FC, and next week is the fall of Pride FC. So just want to give a reminder that that's on. You might have Vice Network and not even know it, so check your broadcast listings. I think that'll be a good one. I said I like the series. The one thing that I feel like is if you're hardcore, you probably already know most of the stuff, like the story of Kimbo. You've probably seen a lot of it. Diego Sanchez had some revelations in there. But this is old school, man. Pride was such a unique time. So if you're new to the sport, or maybe even if you just weren't as hardcore back then, I think these will be 2 good episodes, really worth watching because they do a lot of in-depth stuff. So looking forward to that. Looking forward to be back in the fights. Looking forward to getting back to and a half for all the fine folks over at patreon.com/the MMA Roadshow. We'll make some tweaks to that in the format moving forward so that we can maintain schedule no matter what's going on. We'll make sure that you're all informed about that. And on behalf of Cold Coffee, I will pass on my sincerest apologies for and I think it makes my run.
I blame Taylor Swift. I was she was supposed to keep me on it, and she just never got back to me.
Never did.
She was supposed to remind me, and then it was just like
that woman, selfish.
And then the meatball tummy, it was rough.
We understand. All right, well listen, that's Siri talking to me. What is that going? All right, listen, I gotta go. I gotta get home and go spend a little time with the family. So to everybody out there, thanks for listening.